All right, so let's talk about Okta. So this has been the biggest story of the week because so many people use Okta. And if you don't know what Okta is, it is a way of logging into corporate resources or any sort of company that is very unified and has two-factor built in. It's generally perceived as a very, very safe way of allowing access to your internal company resources via this sort of gateway. So it's very, very problematic that they potentially were breached, and that in this case, it looks like some customers may have been impacted. Now, the problem here is not so much what happened, obviously that's bad, it's the response and the speed with which this company has given all of its trusted customers their ability to respond. So, and again, this is not me criticizing them. I think that once you get breached, it sucks, and like you just do your best and try to look out for your customers while also making sure you have everything handled on your end and that you're not, giving the game away before you're absolutely sure the breach is over, you've locked everything down, and you know what happened. Obviously, you want to take care of that before you make a statement, just so you don't contradict yourself and you don't say anything wrong. But there are some people that are noting that it has been downplayed a lot in the communication to its customers. It's not totally clear what exactly happened based on what they're saying. And the threat actor in this case is being very vocal about their side of events. So while Okta is saying that it was limited action that was actually impacted, there were some customers who might have been impacted, but it was a very brief period. There's nothing anybody needs to do about it. Some outside people are saying like that, that doesn't really get across the scope of what happened, which appears to have been that somebody was able to gain access to an administrative portal, which potentially would allow them to reset different customers' passwords. That is obviously very bad. So Okta has been saying, this was limited. They haven't really seen any evidence that this was actually used. However, the hackers, which was LAPSUS, are definitely taking credit for this and kind of giving their side of the story, including dropping screenshots from some time that contradict a little bit of what Okta was talking about. So the suspected Okta hackers were also arrested by British police. And because these hackers are also under the age of 18, these, again, between 16 and 21, most of them are underage and they have not been named because it's not legal to do so. However, they seem to be the ones behind a lot of these high-profile breaches. And kind of honestly, it would square a little bit just based on the chaos we observed from some of their internal messages leaking out about internal fighting. This is obviously of interest because, again, they've been very vocal about what has been going on here. And they have been talking about this to their Telegram members. And also, they messed up and had a Telegram chat where they were asking people, they were like having people vote on like who they were going to hack next. And they were bragging about the access they got to Microsoft around the same time. And they were in the process of downloading a lot of proprietary stuff when somebody who was lurking in the chat, who apparently worked with Microsoft or was able to warn them, let Microsoft know, and they cut the download in the middle of the night of like an 11 gigabyte file. So obviously there were operational problems with this hacking group for quite some time, both in the way they handled the NVIDIA campaign, where they were arguing with each other over the ridiculous demands they were like levying at the company, and then also with the Microsoft campaign, where they kind of countered their chickens before they hatched and ended up with nothing, or at least like half of nothing, because Microsoft was able to sever the data connection before they were able to fully exfiltrate what they had. So super, super interesting in terms of looking into how these hacking groups operate. But the researchers, again, have kind of linked a lot of these attacks to a 16-year-old from the UK, who has apparently now been arrested, if not charged. And again, Okta is saying that they follow the principle of least privilege, so it's probably not that big of a deal. But according to the LAPSUS group themselves, quote, "I'm still unsure how this is an unsuccessful attempt. I logged into the super user portal with the ability to reset the password and MFA of 95% of clients. Isn't that successful?" So, I mean, I would technically say yes, but again, it depends really on what action they took next. Obviously, this is a very scary breach for people who use Okta, and the company's attempt to make it seem not as bad is definitely backfiring. A clear-cut, straight response from the start, ripping off the Band-Aid, in my opinion, is probably the best way to go about this, because customers who are confused and angry is the worst position to be in after a breach. Again, this is a very difficult one because it seems like Okta also just got back the results of the report about what happened on the 17th, which was a little bit ago. So yeah, so people really want to know what happened here because it seems like this attack did happen a little while ago, and getting the most information out there has been a struggle right now for people who are trying to find out what happened and exactly who was responsible. So I don't like to give Krebs a lot of airtime, but I will say that Krebs on Security does have a closer look into the LAPSUS data extortion group. That's not half bad. So if you want to look a little bit more into who is suspected to be behind this group and what it is that they have done in the past, it's interesting to note their interaction with raid forums and doxbin, because it seems like this person's had become part of a community that doxed people and then ended up becoming doxed themselves because they dropped a bunch of that information without the other people who had put the data in their's consent, and that made them very angry, and they turned around and doxed that person very hard. So kind of ironic on a story from Brian Krebs, who was also accused of doxing a researcher. But anyway, so if you want to read this, you can look into a little bit more about who's behind all this stuff. But it seems as though the reason LAPSUS is getting in the news is because they're going after absolutely huge companies that lots of people are now very spooked and upset about, and it's just attracting a lot more attention than I think they were initially expecting. It seems like there's also some links to Brazil, and it's suspected that some other members of the group might be Brazilian teenagers based on their Portuguese language and targeting of Portuguese businesses and websites. So an involving story, but very interesting to see that this group might finally have found some consequences for its actions in going after some of these really big actors that kind of everybody uses, and rattling up enough interest that it's inevitable that substantial amounts of resources are spent figuring out who's behind these attacks. All right, cool. So that is all the time we have today. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Veronis for all the help that we've received on production the last week. We got to have Killian come out and do a guest spot on our video that we just released yesterday, so check that out. And it's awesome to be able to do these live streams and communicate with all of you and get to just talk to other hackers throughout the week. So thank you to everybody in the chat. And if you want to ask us a question, make sure to leave it in the YouTube comments so we'll see it. And we will answer it on the live Q&A stream, which will be on Hack 5 next Tuesday, which is where we'll see you next. All right, see you next time. Bye.